Hello, welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be looking at designing a program of some of the complex multi-joint exercises that I have shared recently and a lot in the past. And so basically a lot of the time on YouTube I'm showing like individual exercises or a series of exercises, but not actually how you would put them together into programs. And like, when do you use them? Do you start off with them? Obviously most of the time they're very complicated, maybe have a specific purpose that they're not relevant to everyone. But most of the time they're hard to do. You can't just start off with it the first day. You have to build into it. So how do you do that? How do you break them up? And there's obviously more than one. Do you do all of them on one workout? It'd be impossible. So how do you break it up and keep things well balanced and structured? So one of the best ways to do this is to sort of break them into phases. So I'm going to create 3 videos here of a rough workout, like I'm speeding through it. So I'm obviously not doing all the sets, but to give you an idea how I might structure this. All right, so this first one is like a sort of a fundamental one. Obviously there's other things I probably would have done as well, other things I probably might add onto it, but to give you a rough idea, this is how it would start. So the first one we're going to start with is the Romanian deadlift. All right, so quite a simple exercise. Discussed this many times. I could do this from blocks like I had there, or I could just hold on to the bar and just practice hinging. So most people are pretty ordinary with their hinging action to begin with. So really spending the time to focus on it and execute the action of the hips is what I'm really looking for with this. So pretty much I'm looking to just get the nice posture and a good hip action, so that nice lumbar curve and a great hip action coming back through there. So I'm actually getting a fair bit of hamstring and glute activation. So really the purpose of this is not really truly strengthening, it's just preparing me for the ones to come that would do the job, being more single leg loaded and split stance movements that are going to place significant greater demands on strength and stability within a movement. So this is like a building block, or the foundation from which I want to build upon with the more intense type of exercise, or the more effective ones that I know will work better. All right, so I'll just start off with doing like 3 sets of say 8 to 12. So I've done about 8 reps there. So I'd have a rest, popping it down, and then straight into that I would usually superset that with a different movement that's say more of an upper body focused type of exercise. So I'm going to use the cable push. So it works well with an exercise this because neither of them compromise the other. So whatever I used in the deadlift I'm not using here, and whatever I'm using here I'm not using in the deadlift. So I could superset these 2 exercises together. So this is a pushing action using the anterior sling. So I'm in a split stance as opposed to the bilateral stance that I had in the last one. I'm using multiple joints here. I'm pretty much every part of the body, but different parts from what I was using in the last one. So you can see how this really complements the other one quite well. Again, it's a very simple exercise, so I can use this with beginners. I could use both of these with beginners, maybe not a barbell with a beginner. I would maybe start with a kettlebell, but they're both very effective for the advanced and heavily trained person as well, because obviously the thing that would make this harder for both of them would be the load. All I have to do is place the load that's to my potential, and both these exercises in their own right are extremely tiring and extremely good at strengthening things. All right, but they're not. The downside of them is they're so simple they don't really relate to certain other abilities that I might get from, especially when I start to create motion. All right, but as a great way, so I could start those 2 exercises as a superset of 3 sets of 8 to 12. All right, so let's assume that I've just done my 3, so I would have a rest there normally, and then repeat that superset. So now if I'm working on the next one, which are different movements. So the first 2 movements I had a bending movement, and the last one I had a sort of mainly a pushing movement, but also with the lunge. Now this time I've got, different to that, I've got a squatting action with a pulling action. All right, so now I've got almost the exact opposite of the last one. It looks, and it's the first one was a bending hip hinge action. This time I'm a squatting action. So as you can see here, I'm actually quite upright. Oops. So I'm actually in quite an upright position here, where before I was in a bent over position. So, but the main focus here is on the upper back, and obviously I've got a bit of work in the legs, but the leg part is actually quite the easy part. All right, but again, I've got multiple joints moving, so ankle, knee, hips, pelvis, and arms, elbow, pretty much everything. All right, so I've got most of the body working here, and in what's really quite a simple movement. And again, I can make this quite hard for an advanced person by loading it up, and it's a great one for a beginner. All right, so it sort of brings in the squatting movement pattern that I had yet to use. So now I'm going to superset this with a specific lunge movement. So if the last one was predominantly an upper body movement, this one's predominantly a lower body movement. So now I'm into this loaded lunge position. So, and I could do this standing still, or I could create motion from it. So I'm going to assume I'm already good enough to do the motion. If I'm not, I might have to simplify it by standing still, and I'll create this basic lunge pattern where I'm just on the move and having to decelerate the body and push myself backwards. So again, it's nothing really all that complicated. Again, even though it's simple, it gets really difficult if it's loaded a lot, or even if it's done at high speeds. Great one for like building some quadricep strength, which I probably had yet to do to the level of with the other ones that you would find in this. And this again, even though my legs get tight and I need it in the squat row, it's not, after a minute or so break, my legs will come back to being pretty good, and I can do that again. All right, so they're quite okay to double up on. And that probably brings me to another point, in that it's actually, if you have a known weakness, you really would try to intentionally double up on that weakness with certain movements if you can. All right, so now that let's assume I did 3 sets of both of that superset, so the squat row 3 times and the lunge 3 times. So now the next one is the twisting pattern, which I had yet to do, although I partly had it involved with the cable push. But this one is specifically rotation. So this is your wood chop exercise. Again, quite a simple one with the high to low movement, but really starts to bring in the weight shifting, which I hadn't really done with anything. So at this stage I was just very much symmetrical and working in sagittal plane. Now I'm working in the transverse plane. So I really bring in a lot more core activity. I had a fair bit in the cable press, cable push one, but this one really, its main purpose is to build through the obliques. So again, I get 8 to 12. Probably the other main difference to this is the tempo. A lot of the ones prior to this were a bit of a slower tempo. This one's quite an explosive one. All right, so again, I'm starting to work with different speeds. The flexibility of my legs is going to be a factor here, so the adductors get a bit, and the hamstrings get a bit of a stretching sort of a feeling. But it's a great exercise that I can really prepares me for the ones that are in the more advanced programs to come, because rotational movement is a huge part in getting them right. So, you know, again, once I've done some simple ones, that now I'll move into one that I'm also yet to do, which is a single leg one. Now, this is arguably the hardest of them all, even though it's the only one that's not has any weight in it. This is your basic hip airplane movement. So its purpose is to create great stability through the feet, the knee and the hip. So the feet and the hip, or the foot and the hip here, are the main drivers of this movement. So up to this stage I really hadn't strained the feet much at all, but now I am. So this is a great one for anyone with knee pain, and preparing the glutes for the more loaded things to come. So this is a really good visual of the knee alignment that you're looking for with this exercise. So you can see I'm maintaining quite a good alignment here. So anyone who's struggling with that knee pain, or balances in particular as well, this was a great exercise. Now this is my stronger of the 2 legs, and you'll see when I do the left one in a second. Obviously I might only work 3 to 4 reps on this, because each rep takes probably 3 times as long as a normal rep, because you have to go so slow. All right, so you would try to, that's where the reps might change. So you'll see in this one I'm really fight with the balance a lot more on this leg. And it's nowhere near as easy, and I actually lose it right there. So my ankle just gave up on me, so I have to reset and start again. You can see I'm maintaining the alignment, but it's a much more difficult thing for me. So I know that, so I would really try to program movements that are going to force me to get better at that. All right, and eventually with time it gets a bit easier, and usually your first set you suck until you get the hang of it. All right, so that's a great one. So different skills from what we've seen with everything else so far. Like I said, that's arguably the hardest one. All of these exercises I've done individual videos of before in more detail, describing how to do it, and other variations and tools you can use to either regress the movement or progress the movement. So if you want to see those, check the description in the link, the links in the description below, because I'll put links to all of these with articles and other videos so you can check them out. Now, by this stage I've done 6 exercises. I would have done, if I've done 3 sets of each, I've done 18 sets so far, plus a warm-up. If I wanted to, I could keep adding some basic core things at the end, so I could add some side planks or something like that. I'm just going to show you, here's a basic forward ball roll, so I could use this to just encourage some additional core activation, and you know, they're not essential exercises. I could do them on the days between the workouts if I wanted to, but if I really wanted to make the most of each workout, I could do these at the end, and it just ties it all together. It's not like, these are kind of like bonus exercises, I suppose you could say. If a person was struggling with certain things, maybe these might be replace some of those other exercises instead. It all depends on the person. So again, this is not like 100% the way you have to do it. It's just to give you an idea how I balance it all out, how I bring in all the different patterns of movement. So the first one was more bending action, then I had pushing with a lunge, I had squatting with a pull, I had basic lunge by itself, I had rotation by itself. So to finish off, you know, you want to try and make sure you've got all these patterns in your workout covered. So, you know, like I went through them all then, but each person might, one person might struggle more with bending, so I'd have more deadlifts. Other people that might be pushing because they've got a shoulder or neck problem, so I might have more things covering off that. It depends on their weakness, but I don't want to neglect the others. I just probably might double up on the one that they're the worst at. But I need to still have some sort of element of each one in there to make sure that the workout's balanced. And maybe the next time I might favour one or two of the others instead. You know, if I don't have anything wrong. There's no sort of rhyme, no sort of like one size fits all for everyone. You just got to like mould it to you. So identifying your weaknesses and really targeting that, and that way you'll get the most out of you at each and every workout and continue to improve, not from training more but from training better. Alright, so that's the first phase. So in the next video you'll see a gradual progression of some of these, and then there'll be a third phase where again you'll see different exercises that sort of follow on from each one. Alright, so hope you enjoy that video and see you on the next one.